Okay, so all dried off now. So we've got a little bit of filler in here. We did this with our soft green stuff that we make up, like Mr. Surfacer, or you can use your normal Mr. Surfacer and pop around all the areas with it. Okay, but basically all we're going to do is exactly the same way. Got my little micro sander here, which is dead handy for getting in all the little areas. So we can just run this around all the little areas first. Just cleaning up, and obviously it'll get us in just all those bits and pieces we need. This area here I'm not too worried about because we've got a big piece of photo-etched which is going to go across here, so it just needs to be roughly sanded level. Now the panel lines, as we spoke about before, they don't exactly line up brilliantly. So we're going to have to take care of them and rescribe a lot of them in, so I'm not going to worry too much about being too polite with this. Okay, so that one's on. Then we're just going to work our way through the sanding sticks. And we're going to just work our way through. So we're starting with the strongest grit first. And then afterwards we're going to replant all the panel lines in there. So if you just give us a minute, we'll just get these sanded up. So just working through the grit, starting with a strong one. Okay, and when you're just left with sort of scratches and you can't see any of the shininess as you work through, then you switch over to the next one, which is my other one. Okay, and then we're just going to do a quick whip over with the sponges, and then we're going to go along with the polishing ones until we're in a position where we can rescribe again. Okay, so we're into the point now of rescribing this major one. Now, a little tip you can use, if you use the instructions themselves, the great thing about it shows where all the panel lines go and how they are. Now, don't take these totally as gospel. So obviously these are, you know, could be wrong. Obviously the artist who did these, you know, might be different from a different type of standpoint for the one you're doing. So obviously just use them as a rough guide, okay? But normally they're pretty much spot on. So what you can follow where the panel lines go and how they are set down if you completely obliterated them. So the same way as we do any other panel line, really we've got our little templates here which obviously got all our shapes on and things like that. So what we can do very carefully, because we've sort of sanded and filled in a lot of where these bad joins were, we can make new ones now to sort of tidy them up, because quite frankly they were a little bit wonky, because where they join up is like a step, so now we don't have that problem. So what we're doing, we're dragging the pea cutter backwards, we're not actually cutting forward. Okay, we're not pushing down at all, and we're just taking it up to the next panel line. Okay, so all we're going to do is just rescore these ones on the top. Okay, exactly the same way. We're just going to redo these ones, and these ones on the side are quite nice. We might be able to... No, we're not going to get in there. I was hoping we might be able to follow the originals. Okay, and just remember, just do one pass for the moment, see how it looks, don't keep going down and down, otherwise you're going to end up with a large trench. So we've got this one there that's going to run right down the length. So we're going to follow this one as well, so we do 2 passes of just dragging, and that should make us our nice panel line. So we just do the same on the other. Okay, and just remember, don't overshoot. You know where you need to go and where you need to stop. Okay, so don't just carrying on for an overshoot, because otherwise that means you've got to refill that line in. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to find our panel line, which we should be following, which is quite tricky on this one because there's not a lot of it left at all. Okay, so we place the pea cutter where it is. One pass, 2 pass, just to there, because I wasn't sure how far it goes. We've stopped a little short, so then we can just fill this in. Again, place it in. And there we go, that pops that one back in. And obviously what we can do is re-rivet just the same. We're just going to go around and put all the rivets back in. So once we've got that done, obviously you're going to have to do the same for the bottom. It's going to take quite a bit of time, so I'm not going to bore you to death with doing that. Okay, now we've done these side pod ones, we've done them as well, just to get in there to make it a little bit easier. So what you can actually do now is glue this outer wing section on. Now when you come in to do this, sometimes it's an awful, there's lots and lots of movement. So what I'm going to do, cut off this tab, this locating tab, because it's going to be a better fit without it. Okay, and because we've taken it off now, what we do, we can lay the wing down section, put it over a flat piece and just sand this square, because there is a little bit of a step between the top and the bottom parts. So just lay it in when it feels right. Okay, you can just sand it. Now this won't be a perfect angle, but it'll be a downside better than that other one we had. Okay, so then you can take your bit of pod, and what I do, if you use a little bit of super glue, just put a couple of dots around the area, just using a little bit of liquid Loctite. What you can do then, you can actually position the wing exactly where we want it. Okay, then you can check your angles to make sure it's all correct. Hold it there a second, give it a squirt of kicker as if it's required. Okay, and then we can, hopefully it will hold. And then what we can do, we can come along with our extra thin, and then we can just fill in underneath. So we'll let it flood the underside, and that way it will all weld, and when it sort of bubbles up, you know you've got enough in there. Okay, but we've got a nice seam on the front, and then what we can do is in a moment, when that's softened slightly, we can manipulate the actual wing to make sure we're at the right angle. Once you've done that and you're happy where it's at the right angle, okay, what we've done, we put a little bit of filler just across the top. So there's two ways you can do this. We can just sand this very lightly off just for the moment. Okay, then we can get in here and rescribe afterwards, just to touch these up. Okay, so say quite a bit of filler on this one, but it's no real easy way around this. But because we've already rescribed that area, don't think you're going to obliterate it, because what we can do is just follow in and take care of it. Okay, because we had a little bit of a step, there we go, it's all back in and done like that now. Then obviously we can just use our sanding sponges just to tidy them up just a little bit. Okay, then we can come in with our polisher and get rid of all the nasties. And obviously now we can see where we've done all this panel line and rescribing, it's all nicely showing through. Yet if we'd done it the other way and we hadn't seen it, we might have had a bit of problem, because obviously we then have totally lost all idea of where any of these joins and lines go. Okay, so we're just going to give that a bit of a polish up over the top now, just like so. Okay, so there we go, nicely done, nice join in there as well. So what you could use if you wanted to is a little bit of cellulose thinners and just give it a wipe around. But what this enables us to do very carefully now is obviously we can just put our lines down and rescribe and take care of any filled lines just by following the pea cutter around, just like so. And then what we can do in a moment, we can rescribe these panels to bring them up into position. So we're just take care of this one. This one's got to come up. Remember, when you're coming up to filler, don't push down, otherwise you're going to end up with a bit of trouble, because you're going to sink a lot easier into filler. There's one. Two. This one should be free. There we go. So we can just dig these panel lines out, just to give them a clean over. Now the bottom one, you might have a few little gaps down in there as well, so you can do that the cheating way. Okay, so just grab yourself a little bit of the soppy, gloopy filler. Here. Okay, I'm just going to grab a little bit on a cocktail stick. I'm just going to come along, and we're just going to gum up some of these. As I say, we're not getting much on the go, because we don't want to totally obliterate the area. But what we're going to do with these is obviously we'll clean them out afterwards with a little bit of cellulose thinners, the same way as we did the intakes. So we get it in like that. Just going to wet a cotton bud, okay, and smooth it in. Wet the other side. Now the reason for wetting it is so it pushes it in without dragging it out. So that's taking care of that in there nicely. We're going to let that dry and we're just going to give it a couple of wipes with the cellulose thinners just to get rid of it. But by using it sort of wet like that, it just pushes it in and makes that job done. Okay, the top one, because it has to be a little bit more precise, we've taken our time with that and we've done that one as well. So with that bit done, okay, we're just running a dirty room here. Okay, what we can actually do then is finish up this scribing work, then we can attach this section on. And we're hoping, because we've test fitted it already, we're not going to need too much filler in there. And as soon as we get that on, we can get the tail on, the tail planes are going to really start looking like a frog foot. Okay, so that's the main parts all rescribed now. We've obviously done right along the top, it's probably quite hard to see. And obviously we've redone all the bottom as well. All nicely done, very happy, and we've got no sink marks or anything else, so we're completely happy with that. Obviously we've got a PE bit to go underneath here. But what we want to do now is really get the wings on and we can get the tail on. Now lining the wings up isn't too much of a problem. I find the easiest way is if you come in from the underside, okay, and we're going to line up the gear and that front part, and then obviously if you flip it over you can see how the back spine should fit in. So with any luck you can just sort of ease it into position. Quite happy how that one is like that. So what we're going to do, just coming in with extra thin, okay, we'll just put a bit of a brush under there, okay, not going to flood it totally, we're just making sure we've obviously got enough, because we might have to just do a tiny little bit of touch up, but we're going to keep hold of that. Then obviously you can slightly adjust as is necessary. Like here we need to just sort of nudge this down just a fraction, just into there, and we can probably lower this just a little bit just to make that a bit better. So we're happy with that now, so we're just going to come in with a second swipe. Okay, so what you can do, you can actually obviously clamp this or just hold this just for a few seconds until it's gone off. Okay, so there we go, we're basically done. I don't know how well we can pick these out. I've got some stills as well for you. But as you can see, we've obviously rescribed and now we've given this a sand over. You can see all the filler dust is now stuck in all the repaneling that we had to do all around this area here on the top. Great thing is, they're nice flat areas. It's not like it's on a curved area and quite tricky to get in. Even redoing these ones up here at the top and working my way through, pretty straightforward, as again, because it's on a flat surface. The only thing you want to make sure is you don't get any sink marks, and perhaps give it a couple of days and see what happens to your filler, and make sure it doesn't just all bed down and disappear again. So we've gone absolutely everywhere, and obviously we did those fillers down in these wing roots and things like that, and all we've done now is just put a little bit of acrylic paint in there just to make sure it's all nice and level. But that's the end of the messy jobs, if you like, and that's those in. The only thing that was a bit of a problem is putting this tail on. Again, you might be seeing on the close-up, we had a big gap running down the bottom here, which had to fill. So all we did, same as we've done with these wing roots, a little bit of our homemade Mr. Surfacer, squeezed in there, and then just wiped along with a cotton bud with a little bit of thinners, and then just a very gentle sand over again. But it was, you know, the thing is, if you line it up how it's supposed to be, it sort of goes a little bit forward. But what you want to do is line up this back part here, this section at the back, to this panel line at the rear, and that seems to be the right way when you look at the pictures of it. If you did it as per the curve, it goes a little bit too far forward. So anyway, we've taken care of that. We're all happy. What we're going to do, I'm going to clean away all this because obviously we've got dust everywhere and I want to get rid of it. Okay, clean the desk away, give it a good wipe down, then we're going to wipe over the entire model to have a nice good look at it and make sure we're all okay. And then what we can start doing is adding some bits of the PE onto the outside, because there's plenty of those bits to go on, all the little bumps and lumps that go all over this thing, and we can get them with the cockpit. Okay, so as you can probably see, we've added some of the photo etch and resin parts to this one. We've obviously put the backing ones on. These are the horseshoe shaped. Plock them in, and then obviously these nice resin replacement scoops. Now the great thing about these replacement scoops is that obviously it's very fine around the intake and it has that proper one. The other one you might be able to see here on the tail, I've opened up the hole for the actual air scoop that goes into the tail as well. So those ones are on, so literally we've just popped this one on the top here, which is a non-resin, which is a standard part, and obviously these resin ones on the back. One underneath the air intake, and there's a couple of the little ones to go on there we'll talk about in a minute. We've also sunk in, the rear bulkhead is in there, and so is the instrument panel, that's in there as well, which looks very, very nice, and I must admit we're all okay with that. And we've put these side ones on. So the other tricky ones to get on with, I suppose, it's this one here, which is part PE33. Now it's quite handy to have a set of bending pliers for doing this type of thing, because what we're actually going to do is make a box. So he says, checking his instructions quite carefully to the best way to do this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bend up the rear part first. So we put the blade on there, and you can just bend this up, and that will give us our 90-degree angle on that one. Okay, and then we can just bend the top one over. Okay, and then coming in from the sides, we can just bend these two down, which will complete our box. And then just tip it all together. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a little bit of PVA glue in there to take care of it. But this is one of those things where it's quite handy to have a pair of these, because they all roughly fit the right shape. So that's that one in like that. And that gives us our little box. So what we can do, we just place the bending pliers on the bottom, okay, and we're just going to bend up these little holders, which are going to go up the top, and then the same on the other side, which gives, if we've overdone it like we've done there, we can just bend them out just a little bit, which gives us our little box, which will then fit onto here. Going to fit on the front section just like this, and at the same time we've also got this little HUD area which is going to go onto the top of this one, of this rear box. So we've already bent up the edges on this HUD, so this is parts for the HUD, which is PE47. Okay, and we just make sure we got them around the right way so they are bending back in. Okay, so this one is going to sit on the top at the back just like so. So as I said, it's quite tricky to see in there. So if we bring the camera in nice and close, you can see what we're trying to do there. Got a little bit of glare on there with the photo etch parts, but you can see that's the parts that are on there. Those will glue into place and move around as well. The other thing as well, we'll talk about what's around it, is this big plate that goes on to the underside. Now the trouble with this is it's a very complex curve, because obviously this isn't just a rounded over effect. You've got a flat and then two squares on this one. So what I've actually done is just take my time and bending this in. Started originally on this side down here for this raised parts, which are the actual air scoops on there. Okay, and then what it does, it details up this bottom bit. Okay, and you can probably see by the reflections this isn't a nice smooth fit. It's going to take a little bit of working in there. So what I'm going to do is put a drop of PVA, drop of super glue in this edge and work my way over. Now the thing is, as I said, we've got a tiny little hole appearing down the front here, because we need to sort of bend this in and sort of form it round. So really there is no rights and wrongs with this. If you've got some nice curved edges, and to be honest, this is one of those things where I've used, like here, I've got a paint stirrer to give us the right sort of corner, and actually bent it round there. So obviously we just put it down onto the table, hold it down like this, and then we just lifted it up and bended it around to give us this type of thing. Let me do that one again so I can show you. So we just place it down like this. We actually place the actual paint stirrer, in my case, which gives me the right bend, and then we lifted it up and bent this one around, so it gives us a curved edge. I know the camera's really struggling with this one, but it gives us a nice curved edge to form this one up. And then what it will do, as I said, is just going to come along, fix it on, okay, and then what we can do with the PVA, with the super glue, we can push it in. I'm not going to use PVA glue because otherwise this one's going to bend and snap off and have all types of trouble. So we're just going to finish putting these last ones on. So as I say, we'll put on this heads-up display, get this one fitted in here. There's a couple of other little combs that comes down forward the edge. We can get those fitted on there. And once we're happy with that, we can get the seat sorted out and the seat in place and get that all right. So we're all happy how it's all going to fit, and it's all going to fit in there nicely, which is obviously going to need a little bit of jiggling about and everything else. But because we're using sort of super glue, it's not going to take long to get in there and fix it in place. Okay, so there we go. We got the actual photo etch work all done, and you might be able to see on the close-up cam, we've got stills of this anyway. There's that front cockpit area all done and put together. And as I say, just take your time with it, and with your bends just have a test fit, see how it goes and everything else, because this front area that's made up with this photo etch stuff is pretty tricky to get right. As I say, all the others on there, so really that's our major parts all done. We've also put the positions for all the little the actual air attack information and the PTO tubes, they're all in as well. We've polished up down here, you might be able to see it, it's nice and polished, really to get that in there because I want it to blend in as much as possible. It's a metal plate, you're not going to get it totally flush, but I've had a good old try at it and I've almost got it there, so I'm quite happy with how that one is as well. So the other bits and pieces we've been doing and getting on with is the actual ejector seat itself. Now, multi-part this one, so what we've got the top box obviously on here at the top, and then obviously we've got a few bits on the sides around the rears that have all gone in, and we've got a couple of photo etch parts which you sort of bend, which are pre-coloured. What I'm going to do now is actually just spray it black. So we just grab a bit of this. Okay, we'll just pop this down. I'm going to use a little bit of tyre black, which is H77, but as I say, any natural black, you just want it to be pretty flat and dead. You don't want a glossy black, because obviously it's going to be a seat. So what we're going to do, we're going to go around and lighten it up and various things as well. So we're just going to pour this neat, just half a mil or so, because obviously you're not going to need much of this at all, into the seat here. Okay, just check our flow. It's nice. Okay, I'm just going to blow this in, and then we can pick out all the colours by hand afterwards. So we'll just work our way on this guy, and just getting in all the angles so we don't get any shadowing. From the tops down everywhere. It's always best to airbrush little bits like these. It's easy just to get your paintbrush out and do it. One, they'll dry quicker, and obviously you won't get any pooling up in the detailed areas like that. So what we do, we just let that dry. At the same time, just because we happen to got some paint left over, what we're going to do is just do a quick seam check on the frog foot. So we're avoiding cockpits and things like that. What we're going to do is just going to pop around this wing root. I'm just going to blow this in. These ones down here, the spine. Anywhere there's a really big join, and obviously it's a very rough job, but what it'll do, it will just show us if we've got good fit seams, and things got a bit of paint on the go. It doesn't hurt. But seeing as it's very flat paint, it will just give us a good indication on what the seams are like, and if we've got any seam lines that are showing through. Because my major concern one, if I'm honest, is this middle one of these, the two engine pods that have sort of we've bolted on, is having a seam line in them, because to get rid of them will be a nightmare a bit later on. But there we go, that's done. Now, painting up the cockpit and everything else around these colours, obviously we've got this area around in front of the cockpit. Not quite sure 100% on what colour that one is yet around this actual area, so I'm going to have to check some references. But what we're going to do, we just let that dry, we'll let the seat dry off, and then we can start getting it together, and we can put on some of the clear parts onto here, get them masked up and things like that in a moment, so we can get it covered up, get some primer on it and start getting on with the painting. Okay, so what we've got now is the clear parts obviously got to be fitted on here. Good tip, make sure you clean out the inside of these, especially on this one, because you're not going to be able to do it afterwards. So we just give this a quick whip round in here. Okay, now we've got these photo etch parts. We just bring the close-up cam in. We've got these photo etch parts here on the sides. Now the thing is, obviously this is where the main canopy is going to lay down onto. I'm fitting it, the spacing on the side seems to be just about right, okay? So then what we want to do is come along obviously with this front one and just test fit, and we're going to slide it in and see how it fits. We're looking for any massive sort of holes and lumps and bumps that may be occurring as this is going in. Thing is, to be honest, it actually fits very, very well. The only thing is, when you're doing these photo etch side panels, make sure they're in a little nice and tight. Otherwise, if they're too far splayed out, you can end up with the problem with this touching and hanging over the edge, which is something I've got almost on this side, on the port side of the aircraft, just down on here. It's very, very close, but it does work, so I'm going to be quite happy to going along with it. So what we're going to do, we'll show you about masking up afterwards, but we'll fix this one in place. So what we're going to do, pop that one on first, on the back. Okay, that's locked in and obviously held nicely in place. We just bring you in on this camera a little bit. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to take our glue. So in this case, we're going to use gator glue. He says, just looking for it. Here it is. Okay, so we've got our gator glue. As I said, you could use something else, but obviously don't use things like super glue or liquid cement and things, because what happens is if it fogs up, you're never going to get it off, and obviously cleaning it up. Good thing with gator glue, if it all goes wrong, we can put a knife in here and we can just cut around it and pull it away, clean it up and reset it afterwards. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take our glue, we just grab a cocktail stick. Okay, so into the glue, and then what we're going to do is just literally run it down around the fronts. Okay, and then over here. Now don't worry too much if you go a little bit over the top, because you'll be okay. Okay, then what we'll do, just grab a little bit more, plenty of it, just to sit on. Obviously we don't want it squirting out everywhere when we push down, but we want it to squirt out a little bit, so it gives us something to smooth into. So there we go. You probably see on the close-ups all around there, but we're just going to wait a minute or so, or just literally a couple of seconds, because what we're waiting for to happen is this to slightly go clear. What this will do is just give us a little bit more bite, so when we push it down, it's not just going to squish all out the way. So by holding it up just a second, it just gives it a little bit of a bite. So when it starts to go slightly clear in some areas, like it's starting to do now, then that means we can actually get this stuck on. It's quite warm in here today. We've got the heating on, so it's not taking long. So we're going to hold the main part at the rear. Okay, we're just going to come in with the front, and we are literally going to slide it up to it. Okay, quite happy, and what we're going to do is not touch it now. Now many a time I do these videos and I show you how to do it and I manoeuvre it and it slips, and then before we know it we've got all types of problems. So what we're going to do, we're going to allow that to stick on there now. Because we've used quite a bit of glue, what's going to happen is it will seal it up on the inside even if there's a gap on the outside, and then we'll show you about tidying up this gap on the outside in a moment. But what I'm wanting to do is to totally go off. So what we're going to do very carefully is just lift out the way the rear one. We're going to place this out of the way and we can talk about this. Now this one here, to be honest, there's a photo etch section that can go in the inside of this, which replaces this detail. I'm going to put it right over the top. It's extremely flat. It does say about sanding it off and removing it. Well, to be honest, it is so flat you're not going to notice anyway. So what you will have, as we did with the front one, is one of these sheets. Now you can't really see them on this because they look like they're blended in, but what it actually is the actual masking set that goes round to the outside of this. Now you could, if you wanted to, just come along and fit these around the outside, or you could put your tape right over the top, because with these, if I show you on one side, he says, carefully trying to find the actual ones, they are not solid masks in the traditional sense of things, he says, and they're not very good either, to be honest. These are extremely touchy. But what you have is little ones, right? Okay, and then what happens is these will then stick on, and then you'll go along and have to fill in the inside and everything else. Quite frankly, I don't like that type. It's personal choice, you could do those, but what I prefer to do, okay, is just grab yourself some large tape. Now this is obviously 40mm Tamiya tape, okay, but you could use sort of anybody's. And all we do, we come along, we find one edge which is quite a nasty edge, as in not very well moulded in. Okay, so we just got him in like that. If we move this one out a touch, okay, stick that in, and then what we're doing is going to wrap this right the way over the actual canopy area itself. So we've gone all the way over. Then what we do, we just hold this up to the light and trim around it. When you've got the light source behind it, you can see the line to follow. So I'm just going to trim this one out, both sides of it. Okay, so that's those on. So what we can do is very gently peel this away, and then obviously make sure your corners are trimmed nicely. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just come around, hopefully, we are done. What we're going to do is make sure these edges are pushed down. Where we've got little curl ups, you might be able to see them on the close-up cam. We've got these little curl ups like here. Make sure they're pushed down really positive, because otherwise paint gets underneath them. Okay, but obviously because it's conforming to the shape. But there you go, that was done and took me all of 30 seconds to pick out. It would have taken me longer, if I'm honest, to stick all then on, then you've got to put it in. And, well, anyway, so that one's on now. So what we need to do, obviously, is this cockpit is to completely dry off. Now, if I had big squishy bits of PVA glue, the white glue hanging out the side, what I'd actually do now is come in, wet a cotton bud, and then wipe around. Thing is, I haven't, so what I'm going to do is let that dry, but what I have got is a couple of gaps around it that I want to take care of. So what we're going to do, we're going to fit the cockpit back on, just to make sure we're positive everywhere where it is sitting. To be honest, I've got a tiny bit of a gap on this side. Okay, but it is drying down nicely. As I said, it's quite warm in here. And then what we can do, we can check on the undersides to make sure it's all okay. All right, so around this area here, if it's all dry and okay, we're right. But what we can actually do, because the paint is sealed up on the inside, we can run acrylic paint underneath it to build up the layer, or even mist the surface out and things like that, which normally we wouldn't want to do, to make us have a perfect join around here. But I need it to dry off first, so we're going to give it sort of 20 minutes just to dry off, come back, give it a bit more if necessary, smooth it down. Okay, so what we're going to do is add a little bit more of the gator glue on a cocktail stick around this edge, smooth it down, let that dry, then we'll put some acrylic on the top, have a look, we're all happy, then we can move on. We can get this then blue tacked in place on the top. Okay, we can get this over to the spray bay and get on with some painting.